Welcome back to the free and open course on real customer service. This is the last lesson in your series. There are 3 steps for a more efficient customer service and to ensure the consistency of your operation. For you not to improve in 1 week and go back to normal in the following. Hit thumbs up if you have enjoyed this series so far. Make sure you have subscribed to the channel too. In the end, I have a surprise for you who watched the entire course. Hello there everyone! One of the issues with taking the course that involves so many areas is certainly content retention. We covered emotional intelligence, communication channels, and even charisma, a lot of things. But how to maintain a high quality service over time? If you search for efficiency in customer service on the internet, you will find many articles talking about your team's metrics such as response time, agent productivity, and which metrics you should follow. And in fact, in a survey in the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, and Singapore with 1,000 customers, it found that 90% believed an immediate response was important or very important. But here, I want to take another approach. How do you keep your service consistent over time? Let's draw the big picture here. Process management has many approaches and usually involves several stakeholders. Therefore, when we speak of a more efficient customer service, we're talking about a certain level of abstraction, looking at the same process and the perception of consistency using formal criteria. In project management, process management has the function of improving the results of a repetitive process. We call this approach BPM for business process management. We'll talk about this later. That's a lot of management for one paragraph. Consistency determines how often you perform and offers the quality of service your customer expects. They don't want unpleasant surprises. In manufacturing, this increase in quality is achieved by reducing process variation or variability through a process called SPC, or Statistical Process Control. This is where I'm gonna draw from for today's class. When we talk about the service sector, consistency involves similarity, uniformity, and equity in the delivery and execution of all the attributes of your service, regardless of time, place, occasion, or service provider. Some of these attributes subject to variation are delivery or response time, accuracy, error-free, courtesy, responsiveness, completeness, availability, variety, service customization, convenience, and ambience. Some of the tools we can use to guarantee the consistency of the process and improve it over time. Audits, monitor the behavior of the process with statistical tools, create error-proof devices and monitor the performance, monitoring through control charts, formalize a process routine management system, and mapping and digitizing the process. In the book SPC Simplified for Services, the authors comment that all these processes will tell you precisely when you are doing something you shouldn't be doing, when you are doing something you should be doing, and when something is going really well. The latter is particularly important because thinking about consistency is not just controlling, but identifying opportunities for improvement. And the best, based on data, not just feelings. As we said before, we don't discuss feelings. In this lesson, we will deal with similarity, uniformity, and equity. Similarity. Processes must be the same. Uniformity. The final product is the same. Equity. Same rules for everyone. Good customer service cannot be accidental. It has to be planned. I've said it before. This is efficient service. Here's what happens. One of the biggest objections I face when I talk with businesses about applying process management models is the fear of stiffening their work. People fear losing the fundamental characteristic all clients like, the human side of customer service, or even becoming something robotic. And I get it, nobody wants it on purpose, especially when it comes to small and medium-sized companies. It would be a worse outcome for the customers and employees. The problem, to me, is in the implementation and even lack of follow-up. If we look only at the financial and measurable results of the process, such as customer satisfaction, I even imagine it doesn't make that much difference in the short term a more robotic or more natural service. Really, the problem is in the long run, brand beauty, which I believe is more subjective. However, as I mentioned in the lesson on how to craft customer service messages, you are not able to script excellence in human service. The script doesn't serve and should not be intended to emulate human touch. You use the script in the actual answer. Therefore, there are other ways to train people for each of the consistency attributes. For uniformity, which guarantees the final delivery is the same, we have to rely on the systems, mainly on supervision and control of outputs. For equity, that is, to ensure the same rules are applied to everyone, we use process auditing. Finally, similarity, in which the processes have to be the same, is through rituals and choreography. Spoiler alert, this last point is where we make sure that customer service will have human touch. Let's go step by step. Ensuring uniformity in customer service, the same delivery for everyone. Maintaining uniformity in your service is about the final delivery of the product. In the case of customer service, which is what we are talking about here, it doesn't matter which way you decide to follow. The final outcome has to be the same. So let's start with it, as it's guaranteed by the systems. A note. It's worth mentioning that by system, I do not refer to softwares exclusively. You can have a completely manual procedure scripted and done on paper. Cool. For you to ensure the result is the same at the end for a more efficient customer service, you should have a final form in which the procedure is reported. For example, there you can place the request, customer data, and what was agreed upon. Very simple. In the end, this form is sent to the logistics team to reship the damaged product, or to the finance team to reimburse, or for the kitchen to prepare the food again, etc. As your operation grows and becomes larger, the types of forms and mechanisms increase, of course. But the focus here is to have central places to report what the output of that interaction is, with the aim of having uniform results. Here, we tend not to take the process as much into account at first as we get there, but to ensure the attendant in the end produces a specific output. As your operation becomes more complex, which is normal for growing businesses, you will create steps for these deliveries to maintain an efficient customer service. So you don't just worry about the ending, as it may be too late to correct or try to collect any information that is crucial. Then these stages or phases of process management begin to emerge. Then your process is no longer just a final form and becomes a chain of steps. Remember when we talked about BPM in the beginning? Business process management is an approach developed with the intention of designing and facilitating the creation and management of processes. Although I am using it to talk about uniformity, it also serves for equity, in which you check if the same rules are being applied. Therefore, as management practices become commonplace, you add checkpoints to your process. This to ask, for example, did you make clear the refund policy deducts 10% for administrative fees? Or did the client sign the reshipment contract? Or have you been warned the support team for your region may take 5 to 10 business days? And so on. Let's get to it in the next point. Ensuring equity of the interaction being fair. One point that bothers me the most as a customer is when I know that if I speak differently to the tenants for the same situation, I can achieve different results. This harms the company's reputation for me. When the same process may have different rules for different people, it will teach your customers in the medium term how they should act and what they should say to get the most beneficial things for them. Of course, here I'm not applying the rule of getting more attention, because you will definitely want to give your most agitated customers more quality time, but the process in the end has to be the same. We call this equity. To get a refund, you must go through this approval process. To get free shipping, you have to fulfill certain criteria. To return the product, it has to undergo a careful analysis. To speak to the engineering team, you have to prove the problem according to a series of criteria. One warning here: the fact that there are criteria for the client to get or not a certain type of service should not be seen as an obstacle or barrier for them. A good attendant will send the message, "Perfect, I will help you to talk directly to the engineering team. I just need to understand some points to brief them." As the chain of steps grow, we need to verify that the process is being followed. There are some ways to do this. I won't go into the details that much. You can conduct a systemic or sampling audit. The latter will go through absolutely the entire process, step by step. On the other hand, by sampling, you analyze a portion of the process either by completely random or systematic selection. In a sampling audit, you will select a small portion of the process or steps and check it's being conducted out according to the expected quality standard. If it's not, you fix it. Despite being random, you can do it on a rotating basis to ensure that in a period of time you cover the entire process, thus the systematic approach. In the phase audit, inspired by the model stage gates, you break your process into stages, each with desired outcomes. In the end, these results add up to generate the final delivery. With phased auditing, you only check the outcome of each phase instead of initially investigating the entire process. It's a very important decision which are the deliveries for each phase. One of the characteristics of services is that there is a lot of human interference. This is great because it gives a touch of personality even in a repeated process. So it removes that feeling of lack of identity, of routine, industrial scale. There is a very common bad practice that occurs during this transition to ensure uniform delivery for everyone and a more efficient customer service. During the implementation of systems to ensure equity through auditing, companies end up trying to standardize the human contact points. I understand the intention because you want to ensure that regardless of who is in the position, all customers are served very well with the same identity. However, the failure happens when we transform a natural process into a systematic one. That's why in the message creation lesson, I also talk about parts you can't standardize. If you cannot script excellence and cannot count on all agents to follow the brand identity, how can you ensure that there is a similarity between services? It's through training and understanding of identity. I call this a choreography. A choreography is the step-by-step procedures, especially when it involves manual formalization in systems and transfer to other areas. For each human interaction, you define what the choreography is like. What are the steps, what types of feelings you should express, if it's focusing on empathy or enthusiasm, what are the procedures that the person must go through. As material for this lesson, I will leave my choreography canvas for download, which was built for you to design choreographies. In my customer service course, I explain very well how to design your choreography. It has 3 principles. It has to be flexible, focused, and rehearsable. The world doesn't care about our plans. The choreography must accommodate these variations within it. Therefore, choreography is not a series of rigid steps that you follow. If you do this, you are not creating a choreography, but a process. And then we fall into the mistake of robotizing the service. Thus, flexible. It also has to be focused. The choreography must be assembled and conducted to arrive at an expected final result. Every choreography has an objective and must directly contribute to some expected result, not just as side effects. Finally, it has to be rehearsable. People must be able to execute it to test its flaws. Rehearsal is a tool to practice a choreography. Many companies work with consultants or actors to do the rehearsal or to validate the choreography. They also invite hidden clients. I used to train among my own employees, communication staff, and myself. All companies with excellent customer service have choreography and rehearsals. You don't script excellence, but you can practice it and improve on good practices. To ensure efficient and consistent delivery of your service, you must be concerned with similarity in the process, equity of compliance to rules, and uniformity of the delivery. Today's lesson had a much more managerial focus with some daily practice. The idea here was to help you take your customer service to the next level while preparing you to move up in your career. You cannot be a great customer service professional if you only know how to follow the processes on time and don't think about the medium and long terms of your company. How about that? As we say in my hometown, better than that, just twice that. To recap what we saw in this class, we understood the concept of process management or PPM and how it applies to a more efficient customer service. The idea here is to achieve similarity, equity, and uniformity. Similarity is about ensuring that excellence of human touch is achieved. We do this through choreography. This is a series of steps, but focus on the interaction between people. Equity is about ensuring the same rules are applied to everyone, with the aim that the customer service doesn't give preference to certain people and is unfair to others. We do this through auditing. Uniformity, on the other hand, is to guarantee the final delivery. As customer service may be the addition of a service component to a product, it is very subject to variation. Therefore, we have implemented systems to control the steps that must be followed. So we have finished our free and open course on real customer service. I hope it was useful to you. I tried to be the most practical so that you can apply the lessons in your routine. To recapitulate the most important concept and our north. Customer service is the perception of a service being provided. Whether you work as a counter attendant or via a help desk or at a school, customer service is the perfect opportunity to add service to your final delivery. As a reminder, we saw about the service framework early on, which reflects the 7 areas of excellent customer service: satisfaction, engagement, relationship, voice, improvement, conflict, and efficiency. Here in this free course, we saw a little bit about satisfaction, relationships, conflict, and efficiency. We also learned about the 2 things that everyone needs: care and attention, and how to give each to your customers. I also introduced the lay the ground framework for you to deal with angry customers. I think a cool lesson was about emotional intelligence, right? Don't forget to check out our complete customer service excellence course. While this content here has about 2 hours or so in total, the full course has more than 6 hours of content, a lot of unique lessons that you don't find here, deepening of several concepts that I went through in this series, and that will increase your knowledge about customer service. Check it out there, link in the description, and of course on our website. Now, the surprise that I mentioned. If you have watched the entire course from the beginning, you can issue a certificate on my website. Go there to en.ivanchagas.com.br and go to certificates. Just mark the course as done and do a final test to issue your free certificate. How about that? I hope you enjoyed your experience so far. You can comment on which content you would like us to cover next. If you need to repeat a lesson, make yourself at home. It's free today and will be forever. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel to follow the next courses. Like this content. If you believe this course has helped you, share it with your colleagues and coworkers so they can enjoy it too. It was an honor to have you here on this free and open course on real customer service. Always look both ways. See you in the future.